With all the news going on today, what's overlooked is Broadway has been shut down for the remainder of the year. It's going to change the way the arts are done. We've seen it in movie production, commercial production, TV production. Everything in the arts has been affected by COVID-19. Find out how the arts are recovering and will bounce back. Coming up next. This is To The Point, and I'm Eric Mitchell. It is an absolute tragedy that COVID-19 has affected so many things, from sports to our entertainment world. We've talked to the comic book men, we've talked to the comic book people, but who we haven't spoke to is the arts. We've talked to the people in commercial world, but we haven't talked to the people affected by the Broadway shutdown, or the fact that most film production has been shut down. What do artists go do? And when I talk about artists, I'm including those creative types, the amazing actors and actresses that we have throughout America that go not making a lot of money and depend on the arts, depend on Broadway, depend on these traveling performances. As we all sit down in front of our TV and enjoy Disney Plus and watch Hamilton, or we turn on all these amazing things, if you look at what's on Broadway, a lot of our favorite movies and favorite plays have either become one or the other, right? You look at Moulin Rouge, which is on Broadway, and tragically won't open again until next year. Today's guest is going to shine some light on what to expect when we do bounce back from COVID-19 with the arts. So let's get to the point with today's guest, Miss Valorie Hubbard. And welcome to the show, Valorie. How are you doing today?
I am very good. Thank you for asking.
It's awesome to have you here. So let's talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, is the arts, Broadway. And I know, unfortunately, as the news of Broadway shutting down for the remainder of the year came tragically just a few days before the passing of Nick Cordero. So it really hasn't been in the media a lot. And obviously there's a lot going on in the media where Broadway is probably the last thing a lot of these mainstream folks want to talk about. But to a lot of us, going to Broadway, seeing these amazing performances has really been brought to light by Disney Plus in the last couple weeks, with Hamilton being brought to our screen. And I don't know about you, I didn't get to go see Hamilton live, but we sat in front of our TVs with our jaws to the floor watching that amazing production on Disney Plus just the other evening.
Yeah, my cousin is a Broadway actor, Chad Burrus, and he had just stepped into Damien Hubbard in Mean Girls on Tuesday before Broadway had shut down on that Thursday night, which was really sad and disappointing. And he went back to Arkansas, where he's living with his family while he's waiting it out. And then I had another really good friend, Alexandra Billings, that was in Wicked on Broadway, and she was in a year contract, so she went back to Los Angeles. And she's writing a book. So how exciting. But, I work with actors. And so a lot of my clients that are sort of pursuing the Broadway realm, a lot of them have decided to move to LA and go for TV, or just turn their focus in on TV right now.
That makes a lot of sense. So, what do you think is going to happen with Broadway? Is this going to be, it wasn't supposed to go this far. Obviously, we're all caught off by COVID-19, and I don't want to get political here. But as I look around the environment, I see New York is doing a good job. The curve is actually, what was once the epicenter is now moved down to what I call New York 2.0, or Florida.
Yeah.
It's crazy down there. Obviously, its difference in leadership is very clear when it comes to between Florida and the state of New York. We can go there all day long, but I don't want to do that. But
Yeah.
what do you think, what's the realistic timeline for Broadway? Is all these actors that are under these contracts?
Someone said, well, some money is better than none, but that's not true because, the overhead to run a Broadway show is really expensive. So, people are like, well, why can't they just sell half a house? And I think that it's too expensive to do that. I mean, I don't know the numbers and all of that stuff, but it feels like there's no way they can put people. I mean, we've all sat in Broadway theaters like yourself. I moved back to New York area a year ago. And in the year's time, I lived in LA for 16 years. In the year time I've been back, I've seen 8 Broadway shows, which is probably more than I saw in 16 years in LA. And so, I was so bummed because I was so happy to be back in this area, to be able to go see everything I wanted to see. But, we've all been in theaters where we're, our knees are up to our mouth and we're, shoulder to shoulder with people without we're in, some of the very few Broadway theaters that are more spread out, which is very few of them. Most of them are old theaters, and so they're very tight. And I just think that until they have a vaccine, I don't see how they're going to be able to open the theaters, which, again, we've already seen several Broadway shows say they're not going to reopen, right? Like Frozen is done. And so I'm just, I'm very worried about Broadway. That's the thing that scares me, because that was a big pull for my husband and I moving back to the East Coast. I really missed that. I really missed seeing what was on the forefront of theater. And theater has been in danger for a long time, and I feel like this throws it. I think Bill Gates said that everything was expedited in the exponential change that was already occurring, that COVID expedited all of the exponential. And I believe we've seen that in our business, in the acting business. A lot of things that were sort of on the back burner to work on are now sort of being put in the front burner because they're becoming necessary. But I believe that it's a problem for Broadway to open up with half houses because I think the overhead's too expensive.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's primetime real estate. And as we've all seen, just watching and seeing some of those productions. And I know comparing anything on Broadway to Hamilton, which probably I think had the largest budget ever for a Broadway. Amazing performance, but a lot of that. I've seen Phantom of the Opera on Broadway. We've seen a lot of the shows, so the production value's there, but the overhead's ridiculous. So having half of an audience isn't going to help. But you're right. We went at Christmas time. We were in New York because my brother lives in Soho, so we were like to spend time with him. He couldn't get time off, so we came to him, which is rough staying in Soho. I know. Shout out to the Dominic, our favorite little place, a slice of life to stay down there on Spring Street. Can't wait for them to reopen. In our state so far, I live in Oregon, and we're not on the list that has to stay 14 days in New York. Not that would be a bad thing, but New York is like the West Coast. Staying there for 14 days just gets really expensive. But, what I don't like to see is the fact that we don't have an opening time for the arts. And I think Broadway is so key. But we can't have large crowds. When I was there at Christmas time, we went to see the Rockettes. We did the touristy thing. But you're right on top of each other, and all those shows are. And they're not going to give up those seats, those primetime seats. Number one, the acoustics aren't designed for that, and it would just be weird to go to any venue without people. But we do need... I'm hoping Pro Sports figures it out, for expedited testing for some of these bigger Broadway shows to be able to continue on, because it's how a lot of these amazing actors that we see on TV, this is where they came from. They didn't just hop into TV. It's very rare to see that. I was just talking to Kelly Aucoin, who's an amazing Broadway actor that's in several TV shows now, like Billions. He plays Dollar Bill in Billions, and he's been in The Americans. And these guys all get their starts there. So I know your company has an interesting background working with those in the arts and helping them through the process. So let's talk about what you do and why this is so key that we figure out what's going on with Broadway. It's not just because we both love Broadway shows. Obviously, that's what we want. But let's talk about how this affects the actor and actresses out there that are the backbone behind the acting.
Right. So I've been an actress my whole life. I've done a lot of TV and film and a lot of important New York theater. And I have always worked with actors on their career. So I'm a business coach for actors. And 8 years ago, I started Actors Fast Track, which is really based on pure, business concepts. I mean, we teach an actor, the first thing we ever ask an actor is, what is the dream? And then we build a comprehensive business plan for them to achieve that dream, and we help them achieve that. And the thing that we're really good at also is, pivoting, because in any business, you have to keep up with what the climate is, what's called, for you to do. And so we've helped a lot of our clients through this time pivot their careers. Like, we had a client that was completely on the track of music theater. He was auditioning for the big music theater Broadway shows. He was really starting to book, and we had to help him pivot towards sitcom because he wants to keep working, and so he's pivoting towards putting himself out towards the customer base for sitcoms. And so, that's what we do. We help our actors navigate the business and everything to do with the business, from getting an agent or a manager to hiring a publicist to selling themselves on a regular basis to learning how to negotiate. Because, a lot of times jobs that the way our business is structured is definitely already changing. It was part of that exponential change that was occurring. And this COVID has expedited that. And so because we're probably going to come out of this in a recession, that a lot of the middlemen jobs that are probably going to start to go away. And a lot of the agencies have closed and will close also. And so, teaching an actor a skill set that maybe they didn't need before because there was people that filled those jobs, and now the structure of what we're doing is changing. And the one thing that we know for sure is there's going to be a lot of acting jobs, because anytime in this country there's ever been turmoil is when the acting has really taken off. And right now, as a nation, we have, as a world, we have, swallowed all the content. And so they need to replace that content. I don't know about you, but I pretty much come to the end of my Netflix.
Very true.
So they are desperate to create new content. And the industry, the film and TV industry, is figuring it out. I mean, Hallmark has already shot a TV show, a movie. Commercials are already back up and running. And we're talking in LA, which it's really bad there right now. And so, so they're figuring it out. I also think, speaking of that, Broadway can take a note out of that chapter and figure out how to shoot these shows and sell these shows.
Absolutely.
They don't have to do it live.
Yeah. And I think they proved that with Hamilton. I mean, that was shot a number of years ago, but how many people devoured that on July 3rd when it came out? I mean, I know I'm in line. I don't know very many people who didn't watch it. It was trending on Twitter. I mean, it was good. Finally, something positive to be trending on Twitter, other than somebody who writes in cap locks all the time and fills our Twitter with hate. It's nice to have something positive. And I know that there's a whole nother conversation. I've seen people come out and say Hamilton should be removed. I saw this yesterday. Hamilton should be removed from Disney Plus because of its controversy, because of Hamilton's wife. If you backstory, I'm like, number one, it's a play. Quit backstorying everything. That Hamilton's wife, Hamilton helped because they owned slaves. I was like, okay. Number one, you should just be amazed by that cast, the talent that it took to do that. Lin-Manuel is an amazing. The gentleman who played George Washington, I keep telling people that was one of my favorite ones there. And whoever played Thomas Jefferson, he was fabulous.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
And so, what I think is that, then put slave play on, they won't put slave play. I don't know if you saw that. They won't put that on Disney Plus, but they could put it on Hulu or Netflix. Yeah. I mean, there's great breadth of plays and musicals that were on Broadway or were getting ready to be on Broadway, that, if they, I just had a client who's a pretty big TV star in Germany. He just flew to Germany today because he's getting work in Germany. He's here, he's done TV here, but like he got a series in Germany, so he flew there and had to, and they tested him in the Frankfurt airport because they know what they're doing there. And if he's not positive, if he's negative, then he doesn't even have to quarantine. That's what they're doing in a lot of countries. You get to the airport, they test you. If you're negative, then you don't have to go in quarantine. If you're positive, you go in 2 weeks of quarantine. So they could test everyone in the cast, and they could bring them all back here, and they could shoot an episode. They could shoot a version, and they could put it and sell it to, and that way all the actors and the artists get paid and get credited, and we continue the art form until we're able to go back into the theaters again.
Yeah, and we need that. I mean, I think that is a key, is to figure out how we do it and make sure these So let me ask you this, and this is something that I have a lot of friends who work in this industry, and I want to know what you've been what you've been telling your performers to how they can power through this. I know every vertical, every level of doesn't matter if it's acting, it's just life in general, with so many people kind of dealing with COVID-19 and it affecting their work. They're either furloughed or they're at home. Obviously, working from home is a little difficult when you're an actor, unless you're doing cool voice work like you, who've done video games and cool stuff like that. You have quite the acting chops there. I got to give that to you. And I'm going through and I see video games in there, and that's pretty dope because
those were motion capture.
Those are so cool.
So, what I've been telling my clients is that we've been working a lot on pitching. And we've been working a lot on building relationships, especially with producers, directors, and writers. Because the one thing that I really saw during this is casting directors kind of shut down and agents kind of shut down. But the people that didn't shut down were the creators. And those are ultimately our real customers as actors, our producers, writers, and directors. So we worked on, during this time, building our relationships with those people because they have stories that they want to tell. And a lot of them were writing those stories or even casting those stories and so we reached out to those people, and my clients had quite a lot of good fortune with that. One of my clients got cast in 3 movies during COVID that are going to shoot next year.
Oh, nice.
So that's what we did. And lately this month, we've been working on, with our clients, on building a 1-minute pitch. And we've really worked on that and pitching straight to camera because, everything's digital now. It doesn't matter where you live. You can live on the moon. So we've just been, working on their pitches and really keeping them active and building relationships. And I have a lot of Black clients, so there's going to be so many stories told from the Black point of view, the Black that thing, because of everything that happened with that this summer. So we've really been working with them to build relationships because, Ava DuVernay probably has written in the last month probably 10 films in her head, if not down on paper. So we've been working with them on building relationships, like, every day there's some new story or some new producer that's producing some TV or movie that I see on Deadline. So we've been really working with them to really get themselves known. The other thing that I've seen happen is a lot of actors have walked away from acting. So I feel like it's really, I understand why, because they've lost their jobs, but we're getting ready to enter the golden age for ourselves. So I've really just been keeping them actively getting in front of their customers.
I like that you say that, because it's funny because a lot of people don't understand the business of your profession. They just think you just show up. I think it's because we watch way too many movies. I mean, I see it as a comparison because I had to laugh because somebody today on Twitter, which has nothing to do with acting, but they made a post where they were talking about America, and they said, well, like a lot of our people who join the military because they have nowhere else to go and no options. And I was like, what 1960s movie were you watching that you think people join the military these days because we have no options? I like this person who wrote it. It wasn't Tucker Carlson, who's a knucklehead, but it was an actual, like, good dude who was like, hey, and he said it, and I said, I don't want to be disrespectful, but you're talking about something you don't know about. And number two, this isn't 1961, where it was like, either I go to jail or I join the Corps. No, we don't. That's not how it is. And acting, it takes a lot. I mean, I know my own sister, who's now an EP for a lot of commercials. She's done, of course, I think all of you guys in the acting profession, you get that bug and it just doesn't leave your system. And you will come hell and high water, you will figure it out, which is a great industry. But there's a lot of business in the industry. So it's great that you're sharing the business side of acting, which people probably go, what? They don't just show up and it's chorus line, 1, 2. No, it's not. So is there anything like, so how do you, so with these folks learning how to pitch, it's all virtual, right? It's all done Zoom.
Yeah, obviously all we're doing now is sort of, we're using LinkedIn a lot because a lot of actors don't use LinkedIn, but all the executive producers, writers, and directors in the world are on LinkedIn. So we use LinkedIn a lot. We pitch ourselves via Instagram, via Twitter. We email pitch ourselves. So video pitches, straight to camera pitches are really working well right now. So we're doing a lot of that, and we actually do a few. We've always in-person in-person events, and now we're doing all virtual events. So we've really had to pivot as a company and also help our clients pivot because I think gone are the days of in the room auditions.
Yeah, true. I think I think you and I, we talked about this off camera, but this is the same way I've talked about mainstream TV and doing network performances. And I'm not here to boast that, I go on TV, but the days of sitting in a studio and meeting everybody and sitting in the green room, that doesn't exist anymore. It's show up 5 minutes, 10 minutes before you're hit, put an earpiece in your ear, get some decent lighting, and live with your webcam. And this is how you're going to do a lot of your media is sitting. You're seeing it. Look at Ryan Seacrest. Look at you and I. But Ryan Seacrest, I look at him, look at his beautiful locks of hair the man has because he's not going to the barber all the time. A lot of these folks can't get into the studio, and it's good to see them. How long has Chris Cuomo been broadcasting from his basement?
Yeah.
I love that dude, but he's been in his basement. Let at Don Lemon. The dude needs to go get a haircut. Don Lemon with a fro just doesn't look right. And I tweeted that.
I had a client that, I can't believe he grew like a beard, like down to here. And so today he showed up to our mastermind call, and everyone was like, he actually lives in New York and he made it to the barber. And so he got it all trimmed down. I was like, oh my God, because he looked like the Unabomber and now he looks like normal. And I couldn't believe how fast his beard grew. So it's true. Everything we were already doing, like in the last 5 years, the amount of self-tapes I did as an actress increased by like tenfold. And now I just don't even understand why we ever have to go back into the room again. I just think it's ridiculous. I don't think we ever have to. So that's good news for actors because literally, as long as you're able to get somewhere for a booking, or more importantly, or better, I should say, they're going to have to start paying for our transportation rather than us paying for our own. But as long as that I feel like we can audition from anywhere, which means that actors don't need to live in the most expensive cities anymore.
Yeah.
New York and LA. Yeah. We can live in other places, and because everything is self-tape. And with that being said, as an actor, if you don't have the ability to self-tape, well, you need to get it because that's the direction we're moving in.
Yeah, it's true. I think it is great because I was just talking to somebody earlier about the fact that we've now moved to this traditional workforce, right? If you ever worked in the regular workforce, you know that 9 to 5 grind. Dolly Parton made a great movie about it, but you don't need it anymore. Truly, you can work 2 hours. I got my job today. if my clients are watching, I got everything done in like 3 hours today, and I'm done. I mean, and most of it was work that normally during non-COVID, I'd be on a plane doing something, being in a studio where I'd be distracted or have staff. But we don't even live out of our WeWork office anymore. We're literally in our house. Everybody on our team is remote, scattered everywhere. And this is just...
I know. My husband just said to me last night, he's like, I don't want to go back to work, you know, and he's a chef. And so he just found out that where he works just reopened. And he's like, I don't want to go back to work. I really enjoyed this. And and, you know, it's been for him and I mean, thank God we haven't gotten sick, but for him and I, it's been a really good thing. You know, it's strengthened our relationship, and it's helped us build things digitally that we've been talking about forever, but just didn't have the time to do. And it's been great, you know. So for us, I mean, you know, I say that thinking of, you know, poor people that have gotten this and lost family members, or, you know, it's terrible.
Yeah, it is. And it's, you know, and we were just talking to a doctor before you, and one of the big things that we always talk about is, like, it's so simple for us to stay safe and healthy. And a lot of us have, like, I've bonded closer. I have older kids, so my youngest is 13. So literally being able to hang out with them, it's actually, you know, as bad as COVID is, you know, we're lucky we haven't got sick. My parents haven't got sick. We know people have got sick, but we've built a lot. We've done a lot. We've been able to touch our creative side. I launched the show during COVID. So to me, it's creativity. It's just better. It's actually assessed more of my, like, I'm like, let's go be ultra creative today. And I think people need to look at the brighter side of everything instead of always look, you know, the Monty Python's famous song, always, see, you started nodding your head. You know where I was going. There we go. Woohoo! I love it when my guests are on the same wavelength as me. It's great when I start doing the Monty Python. I always look at the bright side of life. Doo-doo.
That's like one of my favorite movies.
Right?
The Life of Brian. I love that movie.
I introduced my kids to that during COVID, and they're now addicts to The Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and then a whole bunch of 80s movies that, I mean, my kids were already 80s fiends, but now they've...
I've been on, you know, how many podcasts and web things I've been on this time, but I was on one and they said, what's your favorite movie? And I said, Brazil. And they never heard of it. And I was like, oh, that's a great movie. And there's a great cameo by Robert De Niro in it. And I just love Monty Python and, you know, anything. Yeah,
it's solid. So, I mean, it's good to hear. But, I mean, your husband being a chef, that is good that restaurants are opening. I know how key that is to a lot of... I mean, I think besides, you know, Hollywood and commercials, we've had 2 commercial producers on our show. And besides, you know, Broadway being shut down, I think the food industry has just been
That's the hardest hit. I mean, that's one of the hardest hits is the food industry.
Just slammed. I mean, even talking about Broadway, what we did talk about is we don't even know if we're getting Saturday Night Live when they come back from the summer break. And it's election 2020, and we depend on Alec Baldwin. We need Alec Baldwin for our...
But I thought their in-home stuff got better and better every week they did it. Which I thought, man, it was really fun to watch the different shows, how they adapted as they went along, like The Voice, Saturday Night Live. Yeah. You know, like they started off, and then by the end, it was like really good. It was like, wow, look at these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy Fallon is kind of living proof of making it really good for doing his show. And we talked about The Daily Show earlier. I am a huge junkie for Trevor Noah. Anything Trevor Noah, I'm a fan of. I love him and Jon Stewart. So when they were both on Trevor's show the other day, it was like way too much of a perfect world for me. But I mean, I think Trevor's done an amazing job also for showing that you could do an entire show from what looks like his closet. Just like, you know, Jimmy's got a little bit more space out there in the Hamptons, so he's got a little bit more, as his People magazine cover showed. But I mean, I think they're showing that we can do that, so you don't need the big shows, the big everything. And they're all, and the common thing, you said it about your husband, Jimmy said it about being home with his kids and his wife, Trevor has said the same thing. It's just building better relationships by being able to do everything at home. And I know most of the networks, besides those people at Fox, they're already back in the studio because I don't know why they're back, but everyone else is staying away from each other. But I think it's just important that people have kind of looked at the bright side. So if we can get Broadway back, that'll be great. But we do need TV shows. I know I'm a Mandalorian fan, so they need to start doing that. And Billions split their season finale, so they had a mid-season finale due to COVID. And I'm like, Billions is supposed to still be on. It's supposed to be what I watch during the summer before Mandalorian comes back on, and they're not filming. So,
I feel that way about Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, so we're all in the same boat. We all have our shows. We need it. And you're right. We have gone through our Netflix where you're like, how many more episodes of The Office can I watch? I mean, I love it, but how many more episodes can we watch? And my children will tell you we could watch them over and over because we've probably watched 100 times because that's our show. But, it's been great chatting with you. I absolutely have.
You too.
Love this conversation. I hope our guests are out there. So for folks out there that are interested in connecting with you, if they are actors, and okay, answer this before you go. Is it actor and actresses, or can I call an actress an actor and not be politically wrong or politically incorrect?
I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, because it never mattered to me. Okay. I mean, I'm an actor. An actor is what I am, and you're an actress. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. But I mean, I think the actor is the term that we just are. It's like thespian, right? Like. So, and if you want to reach out to me, actorsfasttrack.com is our website, and you can fill out a form on there, and we'll reach out to you. There's tons of stuff about us online and ways to reach out to us. So we always, talk to someone initially, and, we're never hard selling someone. We always like to talk to them and find out about them, what they're trying to do, and then eventually, like, if they want to work with us, they work with us. So that's the way it works.
I love it. That's good. I mean, folks need to be able to reach out and figure it out. And it's been great chatting with you. I mean, we're going to have you back when Broadway gets closer to reopening and when we have more commercials. I'm just curious how this is all going to play out. I mean, I know we didn't talk about it, but we've got the Super Bowl commercials because the NFL is going to push forward with the season. The same goes with the NBA. They start at the end of this month. They're going to have commercials, obviously, with the NBA Finals taking place in October. I don't want people to don't think for a second these commercials aren't going to get filmed and put in there. There's a lot more sponsor space and a lot more ad space with fans not in the stands. You better believe, with our eyeballs watching at home, commercials are going to get produced, and it doesn't matter if there's 10 people on set. Everybody wear their mask and make commercials because those will be out there. Don't think 2021 cars won't get released. Trust me, they will.
All right. Well, it was great talking to you.
Absolutely. So we'll be right back after these messages.
Let's get to the point.